Saturday View on Midlands 103. With thanks to Lumclume Energy, pioneering innovation, powering progress. LumclumeEnergy.com. Have your say. Call 0818 300 103. Text or WhatsApp your Saturday View to 083 3010 103.
Hello and a very good morning to you all. Ronan Berry here with you on Saturday View. Lots to get into and discuss on this morning's show, including we'll look into that scoping report on historical sexual abuse in many religiously run institutions across the country. Some, quite frankly, harrowing and staggering details and statistics brought out over the week. So we'll get an update on that. Patsy McGarry, a religious correspondent with the Irish Times, wrote another quite detailed article in the paper this morning. Patsy will join me from around 10:30 to talk about that. And again, what you notice is lots of institutions and schools around the Midlands listed in that too. And so again, this is a topic that touches all parts of the country, unfortunately. But again, some people are saying that this is only the tip of the iceberg as well. But we'll look at that a little bit more detail later. Coláiste Mhuire in Mullingar have unveiled a new safety video. It has a really stark warning, stark message, and it's coming from the students. And it goes without saying, last night, another road victim, another road death on our roads, bringing the total number of people killed to 129 this year already. And, it just seems to be recurring all the time. But the students of Coláiste Mhuire have decided to try and take action and do something, create a video to hopefully speak to their peers and maybe even their peers' parents and guardians and everybody out there. So we'll hear from the video producer, a Mullingar man, later on, who was instrumental in putting this video together, about the message and about what they hope to garner from this new campaign. So lots to get your teeth and get stuck into today. If you want to join me, want to get involved in the show, 083 3010 103, powered by Lamb Brothers Toyota, is a text and WhatsApp line. Or you can give us a call, 0818 300 103. And let me know if you've been affected by any of the issues that we're going to speak about today, or if there's something that you have on your mind or you want to get your word, your speak in there, please do and join that conversation. But this morning I'm going to start on that whole area of dynamic ticket pricing. Now, I never really knew what it was by definition, but it's something that really came into our kind of lexicon over the last week, particularly if you were one of the people looking for Oasis tickets. Now, this will apply to really any concert maybe that's coming up in the near future, because, yes, we know things like dynamic pricing or surge pricing was evident if you were booking a flight, but it was kind of made sense. If you're trying to book an airline flight close to the time you're due to leave, you're probably going to pay more for it. You expect that, so you kind of just take that on the chin and go with it. But certainly last Saturday, for me, and I think for many of us, what was a shock was tickets were put up for sale. It said from $86.50. You had a rough idea what tickets were going to cost. And what ensued was people buying tickets for €176 to stand on the pitch each. Next thing, they were going up to €400, even talks of €500, premium tickets being sold. So this whole idea of dynamic pricing really came to light. So we're going to look at this morning, number one, what's driving that and who is primarily responsible for it? Is it the band? Is it promoters? Is it the ticket seller? Or who is actually profiting from this? Are we creating a frenzy and a sense of, if I don't get them now, I'm going to miss out and therefore won't see the bands? Are we creating another kind of, a barrier for so many people to actually get to concerts? Because if you think about it, the minimum wage as of the 1st of January this year is $12.70 per hour. That's around €495.30 per week for a 39-hour working week. And that's what a lot of people paid for a standing ticket for Oasis, or for tickets right up as somebody say, the nosebleed seats, where the tickets that come with a vertical warning for Croke Park. And that was one thing before. You expected to pay more money for a better or more premium seat. The All-Ireland finals this year were €100 per ticket, which was an increase from €90 over the last couple of years. It hadn't increased in quite a while, but it was quite clear and transparent. €100 per ticket, end of. There was no dynamic pricing or surge pricing taking place on that. There's been huge furore over this during the week as well. Mary Lou MacDonald said in the Irish Mirror a few days ago that Oasis fans were thrown under a bus by the working class group over the ticket prices. And she said that dynamic pricing cannot be allowed and fans should be told in advance exactly how much tickets are supposed to cost. We know as of yesterday evening, the Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, the CCPC, has opened an investigation into Ticketmaster Ireland and its handling of the sale of Oasis tickets on the weekend of the 31st of August. And it follows review of more than 108 complaints received to their helpline. Now, there is some legislation in place. The Irish Statute Book will talk about the Sale of Tickets, Cultural, Entertainment, Recreational and Sporting Events Act 2021, which aims to promote fair access to tickets for all those events, and by prohibiting the sale or advertising for sale of tickets or ticket packages for a price exceeding their original sale price for events taking place in designated venues and for designated events. And I suppose you can read deeper into that act that's in place. It tries to prevent the reselling of tickets, and that's often the argument put forward for dynamic pricing, that this keeps the touts out. It stops this reselling. But what's the difference in paying €1,000 for a ticket from a tout or paying the same for dynamic pricing? Let's look into that a bit further. But action is being proposed and is being taken as well. Fianna Fáil, some members of Fianna Fáil have drafted a dynamic pricing, they've drafted an amendment to that bill and they've put that forward in the Seanad. And one of those people is Senator Timmy Dooley. Very good morning, Senator Dooley.
Morning, Ronan. How are you?
I'm fine, I suppose. I was one of the people who naively joined the queue last weekend, but I kind of, when I saw the prices where they were going and getting feedback from people, I kind of said, right, we might just leave that and park it and come back at it in a few months' time. But we all know where things have kind of gone since. So you've put forward an amendment to that Sale of Tickets, Cultural, Entertainment, Recreational and Sporting Events Act 2021. What's your intention? What difference will this amendment make?
The intention behind it, Ronan, really stems from what happened last Saturday. And like you, I had heard of dynamic ticket pricing and I thought I understood it in relation to airlines and hotels and Ubers and various different other services like that. But I hadn't really seen it in relation to concerts, or it hadn't been brought to my attention. I wasn't online last Saturday morning, but plenty of people that I know and people that contacted me since were. And the difficulty that we have with it here is that using the sale of tickets in the internet, you open up effectively an auction. You say that it starts at 8 o'clock in the morning, and you lure people in who are fans of Oasis, and I would count myself amongst that. They wouldn't be my biggest act in the world, but I'd have a good old interest in their music and have a regard for where they came from and how they made it. But you lure people in on the notion that they're going to get a ticket for €86, and then all of a sudden there's a queue, and there's up to maybe 300,000 or 400,000 people in these various different queues, queuing on their laptops, queuing on their phones, queuing on iPads, etc., etc. And they're delayed. And the belief they have is that they're in a queue to buy a ticket for €86 because that's what it was advertised at. And of course, they understand that maybe the standing tickets are a little bit cheaper than what you might get up at the premium level, or if you're in a good lower Hogan or a lower Cusick, like we'd be familiar with from an All-Ireland perspective. But we're not sure if any tickets were sold at €86, and we're not sure at what point they were. So the concern, I think, is that this process leaves the band open to setting a very high price. Basically, what will the market sustain? So they put a ticket on sale for 400, and a whole bunch of people dive in because they're coming towards the end of their queue and buy it, believing that there are no other tickets sold. So there's no transparency. There's nothing at the start that says everyone on the ground gets a ticket for €86. Everybody in X number of rows within the Hogan or the Cusick get it for 150. And then if you want a premium package, you get it for 400. If that was advertised from the start, lots of people wouldn't have been lured into it. But I've heard countless stories of young adults or teenagers who have an affinity with Oasis, who their parents had said, well, look, I'll get you 2 tickets for that, or I'll pay for 2 tickets for that, believing they were going to be €86 or maybe 150. And we're online, and the next thing, tickets come up at 400. And they were kind of guilted into spending that 400, because there's always the argument, well, look, at a fool and its money will part. Nobody forced them to buy the tickets. And I get that argument too. But all we want with this amendment is that in advance of a concert going on sale, that the primary ticket seller, and to us that's the act or the band, it's easy to blame the promoter or the ticket seller, but in truth, it's the band, it's Oasis. It is whatever act decides that they want to maximise their profits, and I think exorbitant profits. And I would go as far as to say that we brought in 2021 a method to stop people making money off the back of the band's creative by eliminating the ticket touts, which was really small in real terms. You know, a handful of people around the venue getting access to tickets and selling them on. What has now transpired is, because you can sell tickets in this dynamic way online, that the band or the act themselves have turned the entire block of 82,000 tickets into an exercise in touting, and they're scalping the Irish public. And they're scalping people who were lured into it, not really appreciating that the tickets were going to be that expensive. Like, if they decide to put all the tickets on sale for €400, they'll have a relatively small crowd turning up online, because they'll just be from the start say, that's okay, that's not for me.
Absolutely, but at least that's a clear price on it. But I suppose just to clarify, like the UK's Competition and Markets Authority has also launched an investigation into Ticketmaster's use of dynamic pricing, and it's something that they brought in 2022, where they aligned ticket prices with the demand. And it said that's led to record-breaking sales, most notably Taylor Swift's $1 billion grossing Eras tour. But isn't that a lot of the problem as well, is that, right, that's the price. In the old days, right, when as soon as I mentioned the Oasis might be coming back, and again, we're just using them as the kind of test case, the current one, that some of these people were saying straight away, there's extra dates there that they're not playing. They could add extra dates. Now bands don't have to, because if people are going to be subjected to dynamic pricing, they're making their money off 2 nights rather than, say, putting on an extra 2 nights to make even more money based on, say, a set ticket price the way it used to be as well. So kind of there's nothing to suggest that the band and the tickets providers aren't winning in this, or the promoters.
Everybody is winning except there's 2 lots of people that are not winning. There's the fans then who don't get to go at all, and that was always the case. And I mean, I've noticed that some of the concert promoters and some of the bands are saying, well, it has always been an issue that there was never enough tickets to meet demand. I get that, and we've all been disappointed on occasion that we didn't get a ticket to go to something that we wanted to. That's acceptable. But what's not acceptable is that people are lured into paying way above the odds or way above the value of what a ticket might be worth. And I mean, I think most people would accept that 150 to 200 euros is at the very upper limit of what most people would be prepared to pay to go to see one of these bands. And there is another knock-on effect that we sometimes forget about, Ronan. And it was brought to my attention by a traditional Irish band that plays in lots of venues around Ireland, who contacted me and were really happy that we were moving ahead with this amendment to the legislation, but said, look, the reality is, if that amount of money, €400 per head, is ultimately charged to so many people who go to this act, that's less money that's in their pockets to spend on other entertainment. So there's a couple of people who will suffer, the smaller acts and the smaller bands, restaurants and various different other entertainment venues. Because if you go to Oasis and you're spending 400, if it's a couple and they're spending 800 or 1,000 between them, that's their budget for entertainment maybe for the next 2 to 3 months. So they won't be eating out in local restaurants. They won't be paying 10 or 15 euros to go to see a traditional band playing somewhere at the weekend. So in my view, it's these big acts that are just creaming off the entirety of the entertainment budget. And whilst it might be a great spectacle, and maybe there's some people that will feel, yeah, that was value for money, the truth of it is many others won't. And it's depriving other businesses on the entertainment side of a living. And I think it's really scalping a cohort of people, usually on the younger side, who have a few quid to spend in entertainment. And it really is, in my view, something which we need to address. And I'm pleased that the British are also saying the same thing. And I was reading something from the States yesterday looking at this dynamic pricing. Again, then the argument is often made about dynamic pricing. Should it always be outlawed? No, because if I take an example in Clare, if I take an early morning flight from Shannon Airport this morning to London at 6:30 or 7 o'clock, I know I'll get a cheaper price, because there's space on the flight, and Michael O'Leary will ensure that those tickets are sold anyway, so he'll offer a cheaper price. If I'm on the way back from London at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the morning, well, that's a more peak time, and I'll pay a higher rate on that. And we get and understand that. It's a way of ensuring that you fill vacant seats. This isn't an issue of filling a stadium that's vacant. It's about maximising the profits. It's about creaming the profits. and it's about luring people into an unsuspecting high price by dangling a carrot in front of them at a ticket at €86, keeping them online for 4 hours, the ticket price going gradually up as they're getting closer to purchase point. And we all know how those sort of invidious auctions work. They grig you along, they bring you along, and the emotion and the excitement of it, you end up paying more than you might have wanted to.
Absolutely, and that's part of it too. I'm going to bring into the conversation Liam Holton. He's the CEO of Future Ticketing. They're a Tullamore-based ticketing company with operations across the world now. Very good morning, Liam.
Good morning, Ronan. Good morning.
I suppose maybe to begin, will you just tell us the difference between your own company, Future Ticketing, and the service it provides for your customers versus what, say, a company like Ticketmaster does?
I suppose we're a sales enabling software, so we allow people to sell their own tickets. We allow bands, football clubs, race courses, and they control the pricing. They control when the tickets go on sale, and they also control the data, and they have that direct relationship with their fan. So if Oasis used us, they would have been able to use loyalty. They would have been able to award points to anybody who'd bought their merchandise, and they would know who their fans are, and they would have a membership like most football clubs have. But in terms of just listening to the conversation, and at the start you asked, the most important question is who benefits from dynamic pricing in this case, and the answer to that is Live Nation. So Live Nation are €19 billion business who basically control the major concert market in Ireland and across America and across a lot of other countries. And if we're just looking at Ticketmaster in isolation, we're only looking at the retail end of what's happening here. Dynamic pricing works well in hotels, it works well on airlines because there's competition. So I don't like the dynamic price in one hotel, I go to another one. I don't like Ryanair's dynamic pricing, I go to Aer Lingus or CityJet or whoever it is. In this case, you don't have that option. So despite the fact that there's a High Court order in place that says, that was granted to the Competition Authority that says Ticketmaster are not allowed to do exclusive sales, it keeps happening. And nobody's policing it. And, there's a lot of people coming out now saying this is wrong, this is wrong. It's been wrong for a long time. There's legislation in place and it's not being acted upon. And as a result, it's the fans who are losing out.
Absolutely. And people are texting in, and one listener has asked, can we confirm who is actually making the money? That there's confusion. Is it Ticketmaster or the bands? And you're firmly saying it is back at the opposite. And in this case, the ticket seller and the promoter are the same entity, effectively. Yeah.
So well, Ticketmaster is owned by Live Nation. Something that should never have been allowed to happen. Competition Authority allowed it to happen. So Ticketmaster is owned, and MCD, who promote in Ireland, are owned by Live Nation. So Oasis will have gone to Live Nation because, to be honest, they didn't have much choice because Live Nation pretty much have a monopoly. And they'll have said, we're putting this tour on, what are you going to pay us? They'll have paid a chunk of money plus some sort of fee on ticket sales. So Live Nation and Oasis are the winners here. And if Oasis really, really cared about their fans, they could control the pricing. They could have memberships, they could have fan loyalty programs, they could have all of that. But
which is something that Live Nation, they do apply with Electric Picnic, where they allow for, if people have attended for a certain number of years or between different brackets, they give them a bit of a discount on it. So it's not like Live Nation haven't done this before or haven't precedence in it.
Yeah,
and of course,
but I suppose in this case, Ron, Oasis are probably not coming back. So they don't really care if they upset a few fans this time around on pricing. Why dynamic pricing doesn't work in other industries, in sport, or why Irish artists like Pat Short or Tommy Fleming or these kind of guys, or the guys that Timmy spoke about earlier, don't use it, is because they want you to come back. They respect you. They care about you. They want you to engage with them. They want you to be a lifetime fan. When you're doing a once-off concert like this, really past the point, they'll be out of Dublin when the concert's over. They probably won't tour again, so it doesn't matter.
that those rumours of them breaking up before the concert happens are unlikely to happen, but who knows? It could be literally the morning after.
It's not just Oasis here. It is all of these big acts.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's potential ramifications for attracting acts to the country in things like this too. But do you think, you mentioned there about that there is legislation in place that's not being policed. Can you talk more clearly, specifically about that? Like what's in place and maybe who's dropping the ball on that one?
So in 2017, the Competition Authority began an investigation into monopoly practices in Ticketmaster. 4 years of investigation, they found that Ticketmaster was abusing a monopoly position. They put in place, they went to the High Court, got a High Court order in January 2022 that said things like Ticketmaster can't have long-term contracts, Ticketmaster have to... can only do 80% of tickets and various, what you would expect them to do, to be honest. But since then, nothing has happened. Nothing has changed. And Irish government is complicit here. Irish government don't insist on ticketing contracts being tendered. The FAI have never tendered their contract. The RFU have never tendered their contract. Bloom work with Ticketmaster despite being a government agency. Live Nation own venues like the O2 and Bord Gosh, and you will only get in there if you're a Ticketmaster act. Abuse of a monopoly position, and artists are suffering. I know of artists who've been told because they use future ticketing, they're not going to play certain venues. Okay. And this is open in the market, and there's High Court orders, and it's not being policed.
Yeah. So should every event then be out to tender, or at least should there be a cap then for, say, even if it's an agricultural event, if it's a cultural event, whatever it might be, should there be a cap on the amount or the proportion of tickets that any vendor can sell, or is there scope within those if there's a smaller event that kind of one seller is generally enough if it's not going to be maybe a sellout or that?
Yeah, there's the practical reality, and because of the abuse of the monopoly position, this legislation only applies to Ticketmaster. So today I'm going to the Ireland match. I can't buy a ticket for anybody. I can't get a ticket from anybody else but Ticketmaster. Yet the legislation is there to say I should be able to.
There you go, man. They're about €120 a ticket as well. I think that's the other thing is that
another case of dynamic pricing and grassroots clubs not getting access to ticket, etc. Getting access to ticket and
I think that's a point. And I know Timmy Dooley, I'm going to bring him back in here now. Was saying that too. We are excluding people, and if people had a plan to maybe go to a number of gigs or events over a year, they could be looking now, going, well, I can really only afford to go to one at best, and maybe not bring family members or bring kids with us. Senator Dooley, just on that point again, just Liam mentioned maybe the government maybe sort of almost washing their hands or not really looking at the legislation that's in place. Would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, no, Liam raises a really interesting point, but it's somewhat different to the issue that I'm trying to address. So on a ticket that I buy through Ticketmaster, I pay €10. So the point Liam is making is I don't have a choice to buy it anywhere else. So there's no competition for that €10. And yes, I would support the idea that kind of becomes more competitive. That saves me, maybe I can buy a ticket with a service fee of €5, so I save €5. The real core of this...
No, sorry, that's not the point I'm making.
Let me finish, if you would.
Just one sec,
there's a number of points. There's also the tie-up between the agent, the band, and it's usually the smaller bands and the venue. And yes, that does need to be unfurled and untangled as well. But for the real issue here, the ones where the touting might take place, for the bigger acts, for this kind of thing, addressing the point that you had made would not solve the problem, because Oasis are so big. The way they operate, they pick Live Nation, they might pick whoever the operator is. They dictate everything. They pay Live Nation, because of their size and scale, a service fee. So Live Nation or MCD or Ticketmaster won't be on a percentage of an event like this. They'll just get a management fee, end of story. The cream goes to Oasis. And the higher and the thicker the cream, and the greater the rake off of it, the greater Oasis make. So that's the way to address the issue that has arisen in relation to Oasis and bands like Taylor Swift, if they chose to go down that road, although she did it a little bit differently. She offered packages at a higher value, so there was an enhanced experience. Now, you can argue whether that was relevant or not, but it was advertised in advance. Liam raises an important point, and it is the tie-up between the promoter, the venue, and the ticket seller, and is that an all-exclusive? And that the ticket seller and the promoter, where they're all the one, and have dominance in terms of control of the venue, it does limit smaller and more secondary and maybe tertiary acts as to whether they get on the whether they get a venue at all. And there does need to be a disentangling there. But it's not really on the ticket side at the end of the day, because as a product, and we do it all the time on the internet, it's the end product I want, not the sales channel, how it gets to me. So whilst the point he raises, and it's a valid point, and yes, it has gone through the courts, I don't necessarily think that the enforcement of that determination by the Consumer and Competition Protection Commission would necessarily resolve the issue here.
Okay, Liam, do you want to have a quick response?
That does need to
listen, firstly, in my experience, competition resolves every economic distorted market. Secondly, this money goes to Live Nation, not to Oasis, not to Ticketmaster. Live Nation and Ticketmaster are the same business. Ticketmaster is just the retail brand of Live Nation. And in my experience now, and Timmy might know this better, generally a band will go to a promoter who will book the venues, sell the tickets, manage everything, and the band just does their creative. So the band will be paid fees, will be paid licenses, and in most cases, a percentage of the revenue. And in fairness, the cost of putting on these concerts is not cheap. Rent in Croke Park is expensive, compliance is expensive. So very often, the actual margin that the band is making is that €10 Ticketmaster fee.
Yeah. And you could see then why bands, it will suit them, like I just said there a while ago, it would suit them to do 2 nights with dynamic pricing in place if the demand is there, rather than putting on 4 nights at fixed fees because of those, let's call it the operational costs of a gig.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's getting harder and harder for bands to make money. There isn't as much money in music. They're having to tour more. And Timmy makes a really valid point that, if somebody pays €400 or €800 for 2 tickets for Oasis, goes overnight, dines in restaurants and all that goes with that, that's money that could be spent on going to a Sharon Shannon concert or going to see Monday or something like that. And we do see that happening. We do see these big acts sucking the discretionary income out of the market. And to be honest, they don't bring much to the Irish economy. They just take money out.
Yeah, it's going as well. Liam, I'm going to say thank you for that, because time is up for us. But as always, Liam Holton, CEO of Future Ticketing, thank you for that this morning. And Senator Timmy Dooley there. And just very briefly, Senator Dooley, in terms of the support so far for your amendment to the Act, where are you with that, and how likely will it be to get through?
Yeah, there's a very considerable support, and I think the approach being taken by the Consumer and Competition Protection Commission by opening an investigation of itself is really helpful. I wrote to them over the weekend when this arose, and a number of other people have done, and their investigation will be helpful. I suspect, and I don't want to predict the outcome of it, but I suspect they'll find a situation where what has happened is not in breach of the current situation. Now, I might be wrong about that, but I'm working on the basis that if that happens, we will need to enact the bill that Jim O'Callaghan and I have drafted in recent days, and that would be the best way to eliminate this dynamic pricing. But there are, as Liam has identified, other issues, and I think it's like a lot of things. It isn't until something comes to the attention of so many that there becomes a groundswell of support to change the situation. I don't think any act or band will try this for a while again, but I think it's important that we put in a legislative defence. Because what you don't want to see happen is that this becomes the norm. And I'm not suggesting that it would, but take, for example, and I don't want to malign the GAA in this, but take, for example, all the people who have no problem getting a ticket to go to any of the games throughout the year, but when it comes to the All-Ireland football or hurling, many true fans never get to go because the tickets get snapped up because there's a scarcity. There's the number that want it versus the places available don't match. We wouldn't want a situation ever where some future management of the GAA would say, well, let's introduce dynamic ticket pricing, because that's now what everybody else is doing.
Absolutely.
So let's
and
not
if you
get
can
to a point where we're closing the door when the horse has bolted.
Absolutely, take action now as well. Senator Timmy Dooley, it's been an absolute pleasure, and look forward to seeing where that legislation goes. I think there's a further conversation there as well. But for now, thank you for that this morning. Time now for a very short break. After that, we'll look at some of those key points and some of the harrowing points from that latest scoping report into historical sex abuse across the churches. Right now, across the Midlands, it's about 16 degrees.
Saturday View on Midlands 103, with thanks to Lumcloon Energy, pioneering innovation, powering progress. LumcloonEnergy.com.
Somebody has texted in regarding that whole issue of the ticket pricing and dynamic pricing and said, Senator Dooley is worried about tickets for concerts. Why not worry about the 4,000 homeless Irish children? Cop on, Mr. Dooley. A lot of people can't afford going. Now, look, they're two entirely separate issues, and I brought him on to talk about dynamic ticket pricing and the action he's wanted to take. But within your text, like that is kind of some of my point as well. If we don't control this or try and nip it in the bud, we will see this situation where you'll have a major artist come into Ireland to play one concert, and people who can afford it, the elite, will go out and spend maybe thousands of euros for the privilege of seeing that artist. And that artist gets away with playing one concert, makes huge money from it, and the vast majority, maybe the bottom 99% of the population, will never have an opportunity to see their favourite artists ever again. I think that's a situation that we don't handle. So I think, look at the art. They're separate issues, not denying there's a huge issue with homelessness and housing out there. But he was brought on to speak about that. But I think we do need to do something on it. But another thing where, look, I'm going to switch topics now as well, because I'm joined now by Patsy McGarry, the religious affairs correspondent with the Irish Times. And he's been writing in today's Irish Times about the report led by Senior Counsel Mary O'Toole into historic sex abuse at religious-run organisations. The numbers are, as expected, quite stark as well. 42 religious congregations involved, with 17 schools listed catering to children with special needs. Overall, 2,295 abuse allegations in schools were outlined, involving 884 alleged abusers across 308 schools. Patsy spoke with me on a Midlands Today Summer Special about 10 days ago, and he spoke about that kind of pivotal moment of his career when he really moved from being a political journalist into the religious affairs correspondent, and working to bring these stories to light and to bring the stories of people who had been abused to light in order to try and take action. Patsy joins me now. Very good morning, Patsy.
Good morning, Rowan.
Patsy, you would have been very close to these stats and figures all along as well, but can you maybe just take us through some of the key points and your own feelings on the report that has been published recently?
Well, I've been dealing with this issue for about 27 years, Rowan, but I have to confess that I was quite shocked by the figures that were produced by the scoping report, scoping inquiry report this week. 2,385 allegations involving 834 alleged abusers, half of whom are still alive, involving 42 out of the 69 religious congregations involved in schools, etc. But I suppose the most appalling figure of all for a lot of people was the fact that nearly a quarter of all those allegations came from just 17 schools which look after children with special needs. I mean, it's as if, these schools were targeted by abusers in particular, and what went on in those schools was clearly shocking. Like Lota, run by the Brothers of Charity in Cork, has the highest single incidence of allegations concerning abuse going back, and this is in the report this week. But the Ryan Commission investigated it, and he published its report in 2009, so really this wasn't new. And of course the big question now is where to from here, and the government currently is putting together terms of reference for a commission of investigation which will investigate what went on in all these schools, not just these private fee-paying schools that were the focus of the inquiry, some of the most prestigious schools in Ireland, but all schools. And when you talk about all schools in Ireland, you're talking about 760 secondary schools, 3,600 primary schools. It's a massive undertaking. I mean, what probably will happen, as did happen with the Ryan Commission, when it was set up in 2000, it was dealing with 215 orphanages, reformatories and industrial schools. So what it did was it mathematically selected a sample as representative of them all and investigated those as an indication of what went on in the whole lot. And I suspect that's exactly what will happen here too as well.
I'd see some of the kind of the stats from it. Like I said, of those aged 35 years and over, some maybe almost 15,500 men and 26,000 women can be estimated to have experienced sexual violence as a child in school. And I mean, it's... And again, if you touch on it there, this apparently is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, I mean, that figure means 40,000 altogether. These are from the Centre of Statistics Office, a recent survey in 2022 on sexual violence in Ireland came up with that 40,000 figure. But it's interesting that only a quarter of men who are abused come forward. So there's a vast number of men out there who have never spoken about their abuse. And this scoping study was basically focused on men who have been in schools like Blackrock College, Belvedere College, Clongowes Wood, some of the leading colleges in Ireland. Also, diocesan colleges will come in within the remit of this. Every diocese in Ireland, or practically 19 of the 26 actually, had their own junior seminary, which would be known as a diocesan college. And the Protestant-run schools as well. There are about 11 of those now, but there were more. And we already know that there were instances of abuse in some of those too as well. So, I mean, it's an enormous undertaking. How they square the circle, I mean, the government in the terms of reference, it cannot be underestimated the challenge that they're facing in this. It will be the biggest single statutory inquiry into child abuse Ireland has ever seen.
And you can only begin to estimate in terms of how long that might actually take to bring to any conclusion as well, and to come up with a fair redress scheme also for people. But as you said too, a lot of the alleged abusers are still alive, and some are probably still very active in communities too, and that in itself is going to present a huge challenge.
Well, most are elderly. As regards the commission itself, I mean, as you indicated there yourself, time is a factor. Most of the people who are abused are elderly or older. I mean, I spoke to a man myself last year he's 78 years of age, who was abused in Blackrock College. That goes back over 60 years. And as regards redress, that's quite a separate matter. I do believe myself, as again with Ryan, what will happen is they'll set up a redress board which will operate parallel to a commission of investigation. And we'll bring in people. The residential institution redress board was for people who were been in orphanages, industrial schools, and reformatories as children. And all of this proceedings were behind closed doors. People went in, they told their story. There's a waiting system to assess what they were entitled to get. They were made an award, and they were told basically, if you accept this, you must agree not to go to the courts or sue in connection with your abuse, and keep the amount confidential. And then there was two reasons for that. One, because people were older, to get to some sort of compensation for them as quickly as possible, and also to avoid clogging up the court system with cases. Because that, for instance, that board made awards to over 15,500 people. They got an average of €62,000 each, and it cost the state approximately 1.3 billion. Now, we'll have more than 15,500 people coming forward in this instance. People are talking about potentially redress costing billions. I mean, I've even heard the figure this week of 5 billion. I think that's probably a bit over the top, but maybe not hugely.
Yeah, I think a lot of listeners would expect that the actual religious institutions, if proven guilty, will play a role in funding that as well. But Patsy, I know time is tight for you. I'm going to let you go. But as always, Patsy McGarry, thank you for that this morning. And again, there's lots more to come in this story. If you have been affected by that, as Patsy says, only about 25% of male abuse victims ever come forward. You can contact organisations such as 1 in 4. They provide service to adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse, and they can be contacted by calling 01662 4070 or by completing an online form at 1in4.ie/contact. Time now for a very short break. After that, Mullingar students from Coláiste de Mhuire are deciding to take action around road safety. Find out what they're doing very shortly.
Saturday View on Midlands 103 with thanks to Lumcloon Energy, pioneering innovation, powering progress. LumcloonEnergy.com.
The death of a young woman in her 30s in a road traffic crash in Donegal during the night brings to 129 the number of people killed on Irish roads this year. Since 2019, people aged between 16 and 25 have represented about 20% of all road deaths, despite making up just about 12% of the population. Now, that trend is also continuing and getting worse. And in 2024, as to date, 1/3 of fatalities are under 25 years of age. We all know things like mobile phones and the distractions they cause. And I spoke about this as a workplace thing during the week on taking care of business. And even it was discussed on Midlands Today that they're a distraction. And in Mullingar, the students of Coláiste de Mhuire have started a road safety awareness campaign. They've created a video that really shows the impact all these notifications. And it starts off like with all these bleeps and as people go to their daily lives. And then when somebody gets behind the wheel of the car, and the video kind of ends with that harrowing knock on the door of the family members. But Noel McIntyre from Mullingar is one of the main people behind the video. He is an award-winning photographer and he has a video media company as well. Very good morning, Noel.
Ronan, thanks for having me on.
Noel, take us through this video as well. This was an idea the students had, which I suppose should give even more impact to it.
Yeah, well, I think firstly I just go back. I'm not the main protagonist here, really. I just, I made the film, okay, but it's the students of CBS Mullingar, and in particular one of the teachers there, Kieran Kelly, who has been leading this from the front for nearly 7 years. Actually, he is particularly passionate about road safety, and he has been bringing it into the classrooms. And this really is a culmination of 7 years' work from Kieran. So he's to be commended. And Kieran, it was Kieran that contacted me actually with the idea of making a film. And from my point of view, as a filmmaker and a photographer, I'm primarily a storyteller, and finding the story is always half the job as far as I'm concerned. And when Kieran brought this story to me, the hair stood at the back of my neck actually, because it's something that nobody is immune to. And the first visual that came to my mind was that silhouette of the two Garda knocking on the door. And that is what the whole project led to, really, was that scene.
Yeah, and if we just consider that, potentially 129 of those knocks have taken place already in 2024, it is quite harrowing. The students had obviously worked with their teacher to create the storybook for the video as well. Did it take long to kind of get the ideas and to work on the production and the direction of it?
Well, we had a series of meetings, and the story sort of evolved, and it began to take a direction. And there was one or two. There was one young man in particular, Ethan Scally. He was very proactive, and he had come up with some really excellent ideas. And in particular, I think he come up with the idea of the two separate daily lives just going on, an ordinary day, and the two guys going to meet, and they're texting each other, and then it ended up in tragedy, of course. And then I think it just evolved over a series of meetings. And my job as the filmmaker was to listen to the teacher and listen to what the kids had to say. And I sometimes I would say, look, hang on, that's a brilliant idea, but we practically won't be able to do that. And I always try and visualize how we would make that scene or make that shot, or how that's going to work. And I don't like taking on complicated scenes, because unless they're executed to perfection, I hate that. So
but sometimes
very, very simple.
Absolutely. In fairness to you, like the simple scenes, the knock on the door. If anybody sees the video, it really is. People know what it is straight away. I spotted it on social media, on LinkedIn last night. What's the plan to get the video out? What are Coláiste Mhuire planning to get it out there? And because the video that people need to see.
Yeah, well, look, it's out there already. The Coláiste Mhuire Instagram, I think, already has had nearly 250,000 views.
Wow.
So that's very significant. It's not even 48 hours on air yet. On Garda Síochána have shared it as well, and that's really gaining a lot of traction. Look, it's on all social media. It's out there at the moment. If you look up CBS Coláiste Mhuire Mullingar on Instagram, is the main account, and just get on, have a look at it, and share it, because it's a very powerful message. And I think there's another thing about that film. There's no backing soundtrack. It's all just a daily. There's the sound of the school bell going off, the church bell ringing, birds in the air. It's just a very, very powerful piece.
Normal scene, and I say people will see their own lives reflected in it, like particularly with just the way the phone is just ever present and constant notifications and the distractions it causes. And it's a very simple scene. We'll share it on the Midlands 103 Instagram directly after the show too, because it's worth seeing, and looking forward to hearing more about it and seeing how much awareness it raises. But thank you all for taking this step towards hopefully reducing the number of road deaths and injuries on our roads. But for now, Noel McIntyre, thank you so much for that, and looking forward to catching up with you again. And that's just bringing me to a close for Saturday View this morning. Big thanks to Noel, and well done to the students there from Coláiste Mhuire CBS in Mullingar. Fantastic idea, great initiative, and always more powerful, isn't it, when it's coming from the very people who are being highly affected by those incidents. Big thanks to Senator Timmy Dooley and of course to Liam Holton, the CEO of Future Ticket, and also for coming on to discuss dynamic pricing and hopefully clarify a little bit of what can be done and separate out what's happening in terms of promoters and the bands versus the venues and the ticket sellers, etc. And also to Patsy McGarry for talking to us there about that latest O'Toole report on historical sexual abuse. Big thanks to Nelly for putting it all together. I'll talk to you all soon.
Saturday View, with thanks to Lumcloon Energy, pioneering innovation, powering progress. LumcloonEnergy.com. Midlands 103. It's almost 11 o'clock.
Time for a holiday? Whether it's a staycation or a trip abroad, Portarlington Credit Union has you covered with small personal loans. Visit portcu.ie. Hotels, pubs, bars, restaurants, the tourism and entertainment business, they've had a tough year, but still given us so much.
So, help us give something back. Nominations are open now for a limited time for the Midlands 103 Hospitality Awards.
Which bar has the most fabulous food? Who's the Midlands top hotel manager? And which music venue is beyond compare?
The Midlands 103 Hospitality Awards, in association with Tullamore Dew and supported by Laois Offaly and Westmeath County Councils. Head to midlands103.com and cast your vote now.
Liam from Sherry Fitzgerald is much more than an estate agent. He's a kids' football coach.
Good shot, Lucy.
He's an amateur beekeeper. A baker. Scones are ready. DIY hobbyist.
You could build a beautiful reading nook there.
But most of all, Liam's an estate agent. A Sherry Fitzgerald agent. Which means he'll work tirelessly to sell your home for the best price. More than agents, we are Sherry Fitzgerald. Meet us at sherryfitz.ie.
Unhappy with your CAO offer? Carlow College St Patrick's is accepting new applications under CAO available places for courses in arts and humanities, English and history, psychology and social care. It's not too late to start your third level journey. For more details, visit carlowcollege.ie/CAO.
It's ploughing time again, when all roads lead to Ratheniska, County Laois, from September 17th to 19th, with everything from farming to fashion, cutting-edge machinery, livestock, innovations, a food festival, indoor and outdoor exhibits, lifestyle events, celebs, and much more. It's a ploughing match, a trade fair, the largest retail pop-up in the country, an educational day out for the kids, and a family fun day, the Farmers' Festival. Sure, nothing compares to the ploughing. Don't miss out. Book online now at npa.ie.
Online at midlands103.com and across Laois Offaly and Westmeath. This is Midlands 103.
At 11, good morning, I'm Tina Gates. A woman in her 30s has died in a two-car collision in County Donegal.